Alright, so it's another day out here in this beautiful garage. These molds down here are all cured up and ready to go, so I'm gonna pull them up, and I'm pretty excited because we're this close to actually casting the climbing holds, so I'm just gonna get right into it. Alright, let's see how easy or how hard these are to actually take up. Alright, the cardboard wasn't too painful to take up. Let's try this one. You guys can see how turning the cardboard the wrong way is causing a little bit of a problem here because the cardboard obviously is staying intact with the silicone here, so yeah, it's not great. Nice. You can see the silicone bled underneath the hold even though I glued it. I'll probably need to do a little bit of cleanup here with my razor. Same here. Oh well. Alright, so I peeled off the cardboard from this mold off camera. It took about 15 minutes, so you can see why you want that kind of laminated graphical side on the inside of your mold and not the other way around. I think you can see how this one turned out, and it peeled off right away really easily, and this one was a lot of work. But the next step here is to just go ahead and start to pull these bolts and nails out of this. So I am going to grab some pliers, and you just want to start to kind of twist these counterclockwise because I do have those T-nuts on the bottom of it just to start to loosen it. You can also press on the silicone a bit to break the surface tension in the space around. Then this nail as well. Let's pull it right out. There's that guy out of the way. And then because I do have the T-nut on this side, I'm going to hold this up actually and keep the T-nut from spinning on the back as I unscrew it. You don't want to tear your silicone, so you want to kind of be careful as you pull things out. Obviously these bolts still have the threads on them, and those can kind of rip the silicone, which you don't want. That one's pretty much ready to start to actually remove the shape. And we're going to do these ones as well. Pull it out to make sure you don't damage anything. Alright. Okay, and next is I'm just going to have to cut just carefully kind of around the edge of the shape. Just remove some of that silicone that bled over the face. I'm going to leave excess around because I don't want to damage the inside of the mold. So. And these foam blocks that are shaped underneath are completely garbage after this step, so don't be afraid of damaging them at all. Alright, that's what's left of the shape. You can see there's a bunch of bits of foam there. I'm going to have to keep pulling this stuff out, kind of get the gist of it there. And I'm going to do the same with this hold. I kind of know where the hold starts and ends because you can see where the hot glue was. Oh, fireworks. Alright, so this is going to need a lot more cleaning, but you kind of get the gist of it. Once I've cleaned it out, I'm going to take a knife and just clean up the edge around the top just so I can obviously release the actual holds easier and kind of see what I'm doing. But there's the partially finished molds.
Very nice.
So I guess you can kind of see what was left of the shapes we made. They get destroyed, so really want to make sure that these molds turn out okay, which I think they turned out great. And we'll see that when I actually cast the molds in just a bit. But off camera, I kind of cleaned them out and got all the foam out. I did it just by using my hands and my fingers, just rubbing it out, not rubbing one out. You can also use a soft bristle toothbrush to kind of get it out, and maybe a little bit of water to kind of scrub it. But you want to be really careful because you don't want to damage that minute little texture that's on the insides of these, because that's what gives you that friction in the final holds. I've also gone and put my bolts in these holds as well. I have some extra bolts where I've cut the threads off of the shaft of the bolt, so it's only the completely smooth cylindrical part of it. You really don't want to get the resin in those threads because you won't be able to pull these out. The other thing I did was grease them a bit. You want to use something that's not water-based because that will affect your resins, and obviously whatever product you use, you want to test it on the resin first. I know this works. And they've also gone in and put the washers in there, which is important just to make sure your hold lasts longer and doesn't get damaged every time you wrench down and tighten it to your wall. And I guess the last thing I kind of want to talk about here is this bigger hold. I mentioned that it's going to use a lot of resin, and it might make sense to make like a hollow back insert for this, so that I don't waste as much resin. And I could still make one for this, and I could still make one that worked with the technique I'm going to show you, but I'll do that later. That's kind of out of the scope for this video. So I'm just going to get right to it, and I'll show you kind of what I'm talking about. So because I don't have a mold box, I can actually insert something into the top of this if it's a piece of wood with some notches in it to actually widen this pinch, or I can also add a clamp to the exterior and close it in to make it a better pinch. Same thing for the ends this way. So if you're looking to try to get a little bit more out of your molds and make them more affordable to you, you can actually kind of distort the shapes of them by manipulating your forms. Same with these ones, but obviously the smaller the hole gets, the more rigid it is, and the less you can kind of distort it. But that's kind of why I haven't made a mold box and insert for this one, is because I know I want to manipulate this down the road. So yeah, I'm just gonna get some protective gear on, and I'm gonna start to pour these, and you'll get to see what the actual holds look like, and I'm pretty excited about that. Actually, there's one thing quick I want to talk about before I pour these, which is how I'm mixing them. The resin I'm using is this Alumilite resin. It's a 1-to-1 ratio resin, which means I can just pour the same amount into each one of these cups. I'm going to mix it together in one of these mixing cups, and it can be by weight or volume. It's a lot easier just to pour it into this, and I can just mix them in here. The other thing I'm going to do is add some color, and I have these little pigment additives to dye the resin. The color changes from what you see in the cup to when it cures. Some people have sat and figured out exactly how much volume of dye they need to get the color they want. I'm just gonna wing it. I'm not that cautious about it. I'm not making a ton of holds that need to match. This isn't for commercial purposes. This is a very dark blue and a very, very light yellow. So I'm gonna mix them together to try to get somewhere between a green and like an aqua blue. Hopefully that works out. And the reason I'm doing that is because there's still some of that green foam left in these molds, and your first couple of pours you're going to end up removing that, and it's going to kind of discolor your hold. It really shouldn't affect the way it feels or climbs, but if you want to hide that, you can get a color that's kind of close to that and it'll mask it a bit. The other thing you can do for measuring out your resin is to fill these up with water and then pour them into a container, measure the volume, then you know exactly how much this needs. And the best thing to do there is to actually write beside the hold on the mold what volume of resin it can take. So every time you pour this hold, you know exactly what you need to fill it to. I don't really want to do that. These are really dry, and I don't want to wait and try to dry the molds before pouring the resin. I want to get this all done today. So I'm just going to hurry ahead and just kind of mix it by eye. I'm going to try to do the bigger one first. I'm going to guesstimate how much volume's in there. I always keep like an extra mold handy in case I have leftover resin, so I can add it to one of these. And then you don't have to really worry about wasting it too much. If by chance the combined volume of these are not enough to fill up this hold, which I think they are, but if they weren't, I'll just end up with a hold that's a little smaller. It won't have as much depth. It'll be a harder pinch to hold onto, which is another way you can get more flexibility out of your molds to make more holds, is you can just pour a shorter depth to make your holds like a little narrower or shorter. Now you might wonder why I wouldn't just like mix 2 big containers of this and have enough to pour all of these. But because of how quick it sets up, if I do that, by the time I pour these, it might already be curing, and then I'm gonna waste it here and end up with a bunch of it curing in this container. Also, the more you mix together all at once, the faster the reaction happens, so the quicker it seems to set up, and then you might just be left with a cup full of resin. So I like to try to use smaller batches at a time. Hopefully that works out here. Otherwise, I might have to switch to doing a bigger container for this. Now I'm gonna put this on, hopefully for the last time, and we're gonna keep going.
I'm going to mention that bubbles here are your enemy, so you're going to want to mix your resin carefully and pour it slowly. Now, you're going to get a couple bubbles on the back, and that's not the worst case scenario. You just don't really want bubbles on the front of your climbing hold. So slow and steady wins the race yet again.
I find that while it sets up, it's easier to take these out before it fully cures. So if you have it at a point where it's somewhat rigid, I would actually carefully pull your bolts and your nails out. Alright, so the resin is all cured and I'm going to demold these. I'm pretty excited to see how they turned out, so here we go. And as you pull these out of the mold, you don't want to just yank them out. You want to slowly kind of break the mold around the holds, loosen it up naturally before you start pulling anything. This first one is about to go. Sweet. Yeah, it looks pretty awesome. I'll get some close-up shots after. Sweet. These will probably just end up being little foot chips. I'll have to drill the bolt holes in these after because these are the damaged molds I had from the last holds I made. Sweet. I think these turned out really awesome, actually. Alright, so the hold's pretty much done. I just need to sand the back down a bit, which you can do with any sander, but I like a belt sander because it's flat and powerful. You can just put it on there and shave it down and flatten it out. I'm not going to film that because I don't think you really need to see that. It's pretty self-explanatory. Just sand the back down, remove any imperfections, and usually you get a little bit of raised edges around the edge of the mold, so you want to shave that down a bit. But that's pretty much it. I think the holds turned out pretty awesome. I'm pretty excited to climb on these, and I think that's gonna be pretty fun. So I'm gonna actually make that the next video, and I wanna do something a little different for that I think you'll enjoy. So check back for that one in the near future. But that's pretty much everything. So thanks for watching. Give us a thumbs up. If you liked it, consider subscribing, and we'll see you in the next one. All right, peace.